now, just looking at that pole over there, take that pole down and get the electric removed from the dead pole
Well,
that's in the
wait,
middle of the
you're gonna
parking
save
lot.
this, because we're gonna repeat the same thing you're just
I
saying.
don't mind,
and-
I'll rehearse it.
Okay,
Not only that, the asphalt's not in good shape either,
all right.
so there's that.
Well, I'm calling to order the planning committee meeting for Tuesday, February 17th at 5 PM. Carmen was not able to join us this evening, so I will be chairing the committee, and Tyler Marovich is sitting in, as well as Mr. Harris for our meeting. The first item on the agenda is the new Kubota tractor for the Parks Department. Information's inside. The Kubota they have right now is 26 years old. They need one to help with the Sunbow property. So they're gonna get a trade-in. The trade-in value is $37,494. So that's what we'll have to pay after the trade-in for the old one.
Okay.
Which I'm sure you're aware of this, because you're on the Parks Board.
Yeah, we
Right,
talked about
okay.
this a little bit ago.
Yeah. This is so strange. Do you have any questions on this?
Not offhand, and I'm good to move this forward.
All right, so we'll move that forward. The next item on the agenda is the parking lot at Spruce and Meridian. To authorize the mayor to offer an amount to purchase that parcel from First National Bank and Trust. We had an appraisal done. The economic developer is ready and would like to put it, for us to put in an offer and see what happens. Bob, do you want to give a little more information on this since you?
Yes, the appraised value came back, I believe, close to 30,000. You guys should all have a copy
Yeah.
of the appraisal. The appraisal does not account for work that needs done, out-of-pocket costs immediately, which would be the light pole that's in the middle of the parking lot is in horrible shape. The electric is falling off of it, obviously doesn't work. So the city would incur costs immediately to do something with that, whether we're gonna just take it down or put a new light up. And also the asphalt is not in very good shape. I would put a price tag of $10,000 to $15,000 to resurface that parking lot and restripe it. So I would recommend offering $20,000 and knowing that we would probably have $15,000 to put into it, which would put us over the value, the appraised value.
Makes sense.
Questions?
Are there any other things, defects on the property that might be in the favor of a negotiated price like that?
I wasn't able to look at the catch basins because of the snow, but there are a couple parking lot catch basins. There were a couple bollards along the west side of the the
Immaculate, yeah,
IC Hall. I don't know if those were bollards or if there was a guardrail there, but those are rusted away and are pretty much worthless also, which should be removed so somebody wouldn't get hurt on them.
So there's some work.
Yeah, so in my opinion, all those items devalue the property because we would immediately have to put work into it.
You get a pretty good jolt when you drive over one of those drains there. They're not close to being level with the asphalt.
So quite a bit of work needs to be done. Rob, do you have any questions on this one? Are we okay with moving this forward?
Yes.
So the tracking sheet is asking to authorize the mayor to make an offer.
Yes,
And it's our recommendation to offer 20,000.
yes. Yep, we're good.
Oh, that sounds
All
good.
right.
The next item on the agenda is the cannabis dispensary moratorium. I know this has expired, correct, Chelsea? I think at this point, the state has adjusted and made their recommendations and put their limitations on what cannabis, whether it's recreational, medical, where it needs to be, what it needs to look like. So in talking with Carmen, we looked at doing a 6-month extension on the moratorium so that we can just take a look at things, make sure everything matches up, to make sure we have what works best for Ravenna.
Rob, remind me, did we pass the ordinance for recreational marijuana.
No, there is nothing in our code about recreational marijuana.
So we would need to do that also, which I believe, Rob, you have a good start on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, all I did, and this was a couple of years ago before we had the moratorium, was to copy the medical marijuana and then just put in a few questions like, you know, do we want further restrictions? Do we want to limit the number total in the city? Do we want to limit how close they can be? Things like that. It's fine if you want to put in a 6-month moratorium. You know how I feel about moratoriums.
No,
I think a
I
lot
know.
of the work has been done. But I would ask, and it's not, I know it's not your committee, but I would ask that this be put on like the next month agenda. Because
Correct.
if not,
keep
we'll
the
just
work.
wait 6 months and we'll just be back to square one.
Right.
Yeah, it's like make sure we're doing our homework in between, before the
Yeah,
next
and
class, you know?
I asked, and Chelsea did give you the 2 new chapters that I put out there with, and inside them there are some questions, so, you know, be thinking about that.
It's my belief that we should not permit the sales downtown. We see the
Yeah.
traffic that's generated at
And-
Super Good.
And by the way, so just so we're clear, you're talking about the moratorium we passed last time, replicating that. That was just that no new
Correct.
and that the existing one couldn't move downtown. That's how it
Correct.
was worded.
Correct.
Because, as you said, I think it's a pretty much an understanding, a consensus of council that we don't want, because of the parking problems we saw, we don't want it located downtown.
Yeah.
But we certainly want to formalize that once we do pass some code.
And we can restrict locations based on the existing location, plus the schools, but we also know that this school is disappearing. West Main
Will be
won't be a school
decommissioned,
next
yeah.
year. Tappan, well, that's residential, so that wouldn't apply anyway, but
Right.
we have control for medical in that only the industrial zone is permitted use. The others are conditionally permitted, which means they have to come to the planning commission for
Right.
permission. So I think it's imperative that we have a recreational use ordinance and memorialize locations with that, and maybe even take a deeper dive into medical. Now, I had some correspondence with Darcy from Super Good recently, and I did share that with Rob. It seems that the state will be issuing another round of licensing. She wasn't sure how many, didn't seem like a whole bunch right away, but we sort of, the trend of even vape shops, as we all see, you know, and then even Ravenna has allowed liquor license permits.
Right.
We've opened that up, even though folks aren't necessarily taking advantage of it, but we've permitted that activity. So it's not too far down the road that I believe things will change. The state sees profit, we're seeing profit, but I also think there's a limit to
Sure.
serving the community. We're serving the community. I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with breaking the monopoly, so to speak, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to having, say, another shop in town. I mean, I don't know that we just, seem like a little bit unfair competition to say we're not gonna have any more. I mean, but that's, again, a council discussion. But I do think we want to limit it. We don't want Ravenna turned into the cannabis, you know, place where everyone
Like
comes
the
to get their
billboards on the way to
get their
Michigan?
fix.
Yeah.
But,
Well, but Rob, I think to your point, the reason that the extension for the moratorium is being asked for is so that we can work on code and the ordinance and get everything put in place properly. As we really were just waiting for the state to figure things out.
well, you know, and they sort of have, but now, if you've been reading updates on this, there's a couple of groups that may bring it to the voters again. They weren't happy that the state, although the state law that was passed preserved our tax,
Revenue.
yeah, I was gonna say carve out. But, you know, they didn't like the restriction on the THC levels, and also, I guess there was nothing prohibiting, like, convenience stores from selling certain types of, like, THC products with something called Delta 8 or whatever. And so, there's some people that are not happy with those restrictions. So now you have to go to a dispensary to get those products where they were being sold in other places. So it's still a moving target.
Well, it's always going to be a
But I
moving
don't know that
target.
anybody's looking at the tax revenue part, so I think we're safe there.
I think it's always going to be a moving target. This is always going to be a touchy thing. So we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence for residents, making sure that we're putting them in the right places, having the right recommendations and guidelines for them, so.
Did have a question for you, Bob. I'm not incredibly close on all the details for these things, but are there not restrictions even within the buildings or for the spaces that we have, that you have to have certain square footage for things if you wanted to, if a business wanted to put a dispensary in anywhere? Based on those rules, they need to have like the secured space in the front as well as so much space and other requirements. So does that kind of filter based on our zoned areas for industrial, does that also have some constraint for even the number of parcels that one could be placed at?
It used to be, but
You know, I don't know how to answer that. The major restrictions were they couldn't be placed, but they had to meet the zoning of the municipality, but they couldn't be placed a certain distance from a school or a rehab facility. Obviously, they would have had to have had parking, and, you know, and, yeah, there was
Like meeting some of
securities.
those minimum requirements, right?
Right, but I don't know, and that was just medical, and
Right.
remember, they just told us we had to approve recreational, and they use the same facilities, so
I know when medical rolled out, there was, when it first started, there was like, you had to have that space before you walked
a
in.
vestibule, yes.
Yeah, and you
right.
had to have, you know, there was certain, like, thing,
had to
how
have a-
you stored stuff, you had, yeah, but I don't know if that's all.
Don't know how
No.
it changed.
When the voters passed the bill, none of that was in there.
Yeah.
When the state allowed medical marijuana, it created this whole structure for getting approval, and it took a long time. I think the ballot initiative sped things up a bit, although people were still concerned about how long it was taking the state to respond. But we can create certain types of restrictions. I mean, that's the point of creating some code and not just leaving it up in the air.
Because I think that one thing that we'll want to address is kind of like what we experienced with Supergood, is how they had, like, there was just an incredible demand for it, and the amount, I mean, and I'm glad we're able to give them the opportunity to expand their parking lot so they're not blocking up public roads with customers looking to patronize their business. But I think for what we would want to put into our stuff for the recreational is to make sure that it has the capacity
Yeah.
to.
Well, I agree, because you never know. Supergood, I'll say this publicly, they've worked with the city really well. When we had concerns about parking, they didn't hesitate to buy the property next door and to turn it into a parking lot.
And
In
to
fact, the correspondence that Bob shared with me, when all these places were having water main problems, you know, and what happens, residents call and they initially blame the city, it's always our fault.
Yeah.
They didn't even call us, as far as I know. They had a sewer problem,
They
right?
had a sewer problem, right.
And they just called a plumber, and they just let us know that there's gonna be somebody working on the street. It's like, we should, you know, all businesses should be as considerate as they are. And certainly, this giving us benefiting with the tax money is amazing, too.
And they
So,
followed
but
through.
we don't know the next, you know, vendor may not be so, you know, accommodating.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure they are by putting in the code that we want them to abide by.
And Darcy will speak to us if we'd ask her to,
Sure.
Yeah.
you know, talk to us about the future legislative, because they keep up with all
Oh,
the things
sure.
that are going on.
Nature of their business, is that they keep quite close.
And there was a list of them across the state that had violated some sort of thing, and I checked, they weren't
They
on.
weren't on
it.
there.
So,
They
it's
were,
like,
yeah, it was like the places that like, one of the places on the list, I don't know where it was putting like food trucks in the parking lot.
Was that it? I don't remember.
Yeah, stuff like that. Super Good was not on the list for that, so, yeah, it was interesting.
There's food across the tracks.
Right. Yeah. Send them over to Circle K.
I mean, I can understand how those might be complimentary goods, especially for those customers.
So are we okay then to move this on? And then Carmen, I know, this is something she really wants to work on, so I'm excited to see what happens with that. We
Yes,
haven't-
I'm good to
manager-
move this forward too.
Yeah, management
Wait, I
update?
think
Yeah,
Bob has something else.
Oh, yeah, Bob, go ahead.
So the mayor and I were approached by the League of Women Voters about redistricting 4 wards. And you guys have a bunch of information. Just at the end of today, a gentleman from representing League of Women Voters sent this information. I believe, Chelsea, you must have printed it out for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
I didn't even look, I didn't have a chance to look at it. Got off the phone with him close to 4 and he fired it off, but I also reached out to the Board of Elections, thinking they would have some information, and they don't. There are ways, allegedly, there are ways to determine the population. And when I was on the phone with the Board of Elections, I realized these are adults that are registered to vote. They don't know how many people, human beings reside in each house. So for us to redistrict, that's what we would have to figure out is,
Almost like a census, how many
Correct.
people live in each of these.
and the gentleman that I spoke
Parcels.
to from the Women's League stated that they have that information, and there's an app called
David something,
Dave's
right?
Redistricting, yes. And I was just really thinking that this would be the perfect job for Tyler. Right?
Oh, I'm not even offended by the suggestion. I've done a lot of work with large data sets,
Okay, good.
analytics, geospatial mapping and things like that too.
Okay.
One of my favorite oddball projects at work was actually using a Google Map thing to show the projections from the National Weather Service where the hurricane was going to overlay based on where our customers were, so we knew what the risk potentially would be, provided that the hurricane followed its instructions. And it helped us get prepared for things. So that kind of stuff is in my wheelhouse.
But ultimately, to redistrict, city council has to approve.
Yeah.
And I don't, like I said, he has some Ohio Revised Code sections in here. In the 14th Amendment, he stated, ORC 731.06. I challenged him a little bit, but he had answers to all of that. So, I mean, it's, in my years with the city, this has not been done. And I say that because I didn't draw the maps. I didn't change our ward maps. And I would have been the one doing it 25 years ago. Or 20 years ago, whenever the census tracts came out. So that's why I'm saying I know it hasn't been done. Yeah, I did discuss with him about a moving target with our population. People move in and out with the high rental rate, and his comment was that's why it's supposed to be done every 10 years when the census comes out. He did go further and state the city of Kent challenged the census because the last census was 2020, during
Yeah.
COVID. And so they delayed their redistricting because they were doing their own research or something. I don't know who from Kent, but it might be something to look into if we're that concerned. It appears that Ward 3 and Ward 2 have the highest voters, I'm assuming the higher population, than 1 and 4. So my understanding is we'd be carving streets off, giving Ward 1, carving streets to give them Ward 4 to bring the population more into check.
I think we need to do some research on this. These are population figures. I don't know what the effect is of having voter numbers.
Like electorate versus population. I think there's
Yeah,
gotta be
I
an
mean,
We
influence.
want voters, we want population, not voters, I'm sorry, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Once I
Yeah.
was talking to
Oh, okay.
the Board of Elections, I realized they're not the group to even speak to about this, because they just deal with voters.
Yeah, and the only thing I wonder about is whether there's anything in the charter related to this or in our code, but I think this is gonna take a little homework to figure out what to do.
We've got some analytics to do for sure.
But just from the description on this one page where it lists the population, I did a quick study, and none of the wards are within compliance. Because it
Yeah.
says you have to be within 10% of the average.
And, yeah, none of them
Some,
are.
the ones that have lost population are well above 20%. And the ones that have gained population, Ward 3 especially, is 35%. The closest one is Ward 2, which is only 14% off, so.
We're having a hot sale.
Those in the room can be congratulated for keeping it as close as possible,
Yeah.
including the mayor.
Oh, yeah, it's valid.
Yeah, Ward 2 is a popular place.
Yeah, we could certainly, and we could check in with Carmen about this too, as far as if this is something we want to.
And I do appreciate that
Pursue.
there's some diligence in making sure that, equal representation, that kind of stuff.
I just-
As
I-
well as other resources.
You look at the map, it's just so perfectly done.
I know, it's
And
really
that's probably
nice.
why it's never been changed, because it's just, the lines are so easy to understand. So, which is probably why there hasn't been an adjustment, but it makes sense.
Rob, I'm wondering if you know offhand, since you do a lot of the good reading for revised code stuff, but are, under the Constitution of Ohio, is there any guidelines regarding like how many wards were limited? I think it sets up that like when it says what is a city council for establishing a government for that, for defining the scope, they say that it is like four wards and at least 3 at large.
I don't, that's an area I've never really looked into, but again, like I said, we're gonna need to do some homework
Yeah, because
to make sure if we're gonna do this, we do it right, because it's not gonna be done again for a long time.
at least 10 years conceivably,
Right.
if, once we get to that pass. Okay, because I think that there's some influence from the state of Ohio on that one too. So.
I'd be curious to know how many cities are out of compliance.
I think I mean, like, this is one of those like housekeeping kind of items that just takes,
Yeah.
is very labor intensive.
Yeah.
And I'd guess that probably a great many of them are.
All right, Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to add?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of the League of Women Voters, with what they're doing. Bob's conversation with this gentleman, when we talked to her on the phone, she said he'd be willing to come and he can figure out, he has a way of figuring out, and it's probably, you addressed it, where it is. They're doing this with small towns. Now, I say that Warren is involved and Youngstown is involved with it. And they had another place in the southern part of,
They just gave up their charter, whatever the town was in southern Ohio, and went to the ORC. But they still had to split their districts up.
yeah.
Basically went back to a township. In
And-
Cleveland, they worked with City of Cleveland to redistrict. I believe they lost a couple wards because of that. On the surface, I thought it was this political pull of trying to pull voters and push them into another district, but it isn't. It's just for the city of Ravenna. It's not going to affect the House.
There is a difference going, River Kale, he's, represents Sawyer, is it?
No, it's David Joyce.
He said that they're gonna be drawing a different map on that level,
At this federal level.
yeah. And it doesn't make any sense, but it's gonna be drawn anyways. They do it for a purpose. In our elections here, our local elections, this is a small town, everybody knows everybody with it, and I think that we're not trying to move anybody on council into another ward so they can't get elected. We're too small for that kind of stuff. But I do respect, I think they want to use these examples so that where they get to larger cities, they can say, this has been done, and this is what the law says, the Constitution says, and you should be in order.
I like the idea that we're pursuing diligence and what's best for the actual residents of the city. And if we can be the city on the hill, it just shows that we're just going to be an example of how to do things right.
Is there anything else? I'm going to adjourn